Hi there, welcome to the Road to Rich podcast. And on this podcast, we talk about all kinds of things entrepreneurship, business, life. And I got a fantastic guest with me today. I'm truly excited to talk to my guest, who is the owner and CEO of FrameShaping, which is a company that does leadership and life enhancement coaching. Chas Higgins is my guest today. Chas, thank you for coming today. You have so much going on in your life, man. I found your journey so interesting because you retired from the Air Force back in 2014 after 23 years of service, and now you're doing life coaching, man. I'm so interested to dig into the dynamics of how things in your past have affected what you do now. So look forward to talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Very cool. So let's start off. So while you were serving so many years in the Air Force, what was it about that experience that taught you about leadership, discipline, and the mindset that shaped what you are and what you do today?
Well, one of the most important things about that is it takes a community, right? We journey through life, we journey through our military service, and we really build on being a team. Everybody has a role to play, and you just kind of move with the flow and fit in, right? And as you fit in, you start picking up these little nuggets throughout your career that really just intrinsically and it literally just improves your life overall, but not without hardship.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and those challenges that you faced along the way, I'm sure, have led you to be what you are today, and as a life coach. So as that, you talk a lot about frames and how we shape them. Can you break down for our audience what a frame is and how it matters in your experience in life and business?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, when you think about the term frame shaping, it's really reframing how we walk through our daily lives, right? Our body is our frame, right? How do we shape our daily lives to be the best versions of ourselves, to be productive, to achieve more, to accomplish more, to just all around be a good person? So we really do have to work on our frame, right? How do we want the world to view us as if we were a picture? And how do we frame our mindset to just, again, like I said, be productive in life and just be the best versions of ourselves?
So it's really both. It's thinking about how we frame the world, but also how we see that the world is framing us.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
fantastic. Very cool. So do you find that veterans or military professionals bring a unique set of frames to when they get into the civilian world and the entrepreneurship world? And is that good and limiting both?
I'm going to tell you yes. And the reason why I say that is because, and I have this conversation with many young airmen when I'm speaking on military installations. In the first 2 years of your military career, you will have more leadership skills than 90% of your top CEOs in our country. We groom people for specific jobs in the civilian sector, right? If you want to be the CEO of, let's say, Apple, right? You're a techie. Right, you grow up a techie. You learn ins and outs of circuitry and things of that nature, but we don't really invest in grooming people to be leaders. Well, in the military, from day one, you're a leader, right? You are grown to be that leader. And so I always say that military members, when they retire or separate from the military, they bring a dynamic to the civilian sector that is it's almost unimaginable to most companies. Yeah. And that's why there's always been this big push about, we hire veterans because they know that veterans are going to bring that leadership, that discipline, things like that to your organization. Here's one thing that's really important to understand about organizational behavior. Human behavior drives that. And if you've ever really talked to a military member, that human behavior that they actually exhibit, the discipline and things of that nature, oh my gosh, your organization will thrive when you have that type of human behavior in your organization to drive your organizational behavior.
Yeah, I've always found that that's ingrained in military personnel that we've ever hired. Is you know what kind of skills that person's bringing that way, and the composition of their character. I feel like that they have some of those leadership qualities because of that background. It's almost just assumed at this point when I talk to somebody who has military experience. So I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, military. In the civilian sector, if you're hired to do a specific job, and somebody comes along and says, hey, I need you to do this, you're going to look at them and say, that's not my job. I don't have that skill. And it's something that's very unique with military members is, there's never a job that's not our job. We figure it out.
That's true. So what part of military training or experience do you think that people in business leadership should adopt more often?
Ooh, I would say we have this thing in the military that we call SOPs, standard operating procedures. The reason why our military is so successful is because I can replace any member of the military at any given time with somebody and there's going to be an operating manual that tells you exactly how to do their job, right? And so we don't really think about that. When you think about retention in the civilian workforce, somebody goes, how long do you spend to train somebody? It doesn't matter what their educational background. They can have a degree in videography, and then you bring them in here and say, go to work, and they're going to be like, I don't know what to do with my hands, right? In the military, we have standard operating seasons. That means you can pull a manual off the shelf, and no matter where you go in the world, no matter who's doing it, you can follow these steps.
And here's how to do your job.
And here's how to do your job. So I think that standard operating procedures could prove beneficial in the civilian sector. Now, of course, we always know that we have to flex a little bit, right? Yeah. And nobody can flex better than the United States military.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny that you say that. I used to work for a government contractor, and it's funny that it influenced me the way that it did, because I kind of came from the other direction where that's how I learned and got into the commercial world where I'm running my own business. And the flexibility and the pliability was something that I always was like, man, if I did it this way, that I would just make it efficient and clean and not do some of these things. And now I've found that I'm very process driven because of my experience with the government contractor, and I am very good on documentation and process and procedures and this sort of thing. Absolutely. So it's obviously affected me from seeing that.
So let me ask you this question. I'm going to ask you a question here. Is having that same mentality, where frame shaping comes in and where I focus on is, how do you get that same mentality in your life, right? We just run through life and just attack anything that comes at us, right? I'm very intentional with my life. Like, people laugh at me when I say that, hey, I can't, today is my wife's day, right? I am intentional with my schedule. I time block every aspect of my life. So I give time to my family, I give time to my friends, and I'm very disciplined and intentional about that, right? Yeah. So it just seems, it seems like it helps me do more when I have that regiment. And people might say, well,
I think you're hitting on something that's super important to me, because that's something that I was not intentional when I first started my business. And man, I told you before, like, I was working 14, 16-hour days and just burning myself and giving up time on those other aspects of life that I felt were important, but I wasn't living it, man. I was working those times and dedicating to work and growing a business, but was I spending time with my kids? Was I spending time with my wife? Was I putting that time there? No, man, I failed on that. And those kind of things I've had to learn through that. And now I'm very intentional with, this time is my time with my kids, and making those choices. I've absolutely had to do that intentionally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Absolutely. That's super important. I didn't learn. I wasn't always very intentional with my daily life. Obviously, with the military comes a lot of stress, a lot of family separation, a lot of just, no kidding, deployments where you're 6 months somewhere in the world where you're separated from all humanity except for that little crew, right? You're very restricted on movement and things of that nature. So, we learn to adapt to those situations, but then when we come back, it's very hard to unlearn.
Do you think that that's something, because of your military background, that a lot of that scheduling of your time was done based on your job that you had to do, and then when you got out, it was kind of like a relearning process for you, because now the time is yours to do what you want to do with it?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. It causes a level of anxiety and stress in your life. So when I retired from the military, I was excited to be retiring because I was putting my family back together. But at the same time, there's not enough preparation that you can really do when you serve 20 plus years in the military, and then all of a sudden hey, have a nice day, go back to regular life, it is a very hard transition.
Big change.
I don't care how excited you are to retire or separate. It's a huge part of life. It's a huge adjustment to readjust back to not having that regiment.
Yeah.
Right.
So this kind of leads me to another question I had. Is that what led you to create frame shaping? And was there a specific moment where you realized that you needed to do what you're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question. So in 2014, when I retired, I scrambled and I took the first job offer that was coming. It just so happened to be the commander that I had at the time hired me back for the same exact job that I really was just retiring from, because really I didn't really have time to plan my exit from the military. And I went on for about 7-8 months in that job, and you know, it led me to attempt to take my life. And I never say that, I never tell anyone that I tried to take my life because I want them to feel sorry. But what I do say is that suicide is 100% preventable, right? It's all about building those connections and things like that with each other. We know that human connection is the number one protective factor against suicide. What does that connection look like? What does that mean? Well, what's important to you? What are the values that you have? And so, ironically, as I was sitting in behavioral health, I was in inpatient care for my attempt, and I cannot make this up. I really sat there and I was listening to all these doctors and psychiatrists talk about you can do this and you can do that, and the world needs you and this. And I promise you, all I heard was Charlie Brown's teacher, right? But something clicked in me that day.
Yeah.
I really, deep down inside of me, I said, Chaz, if you're going to get better, it's going to take you, no one else. It's going to take you. And so, ironically, I got out of inpatient care and I was offered a job as a suicide prevention program manager.
Awesome.
I am fresh out of inpatient care myself,
Yeah.
and I was offered this position.
That's awesome.
And I was a little apprehensive at first, but I did it because, again, while I was in inpatient therapy, I said, I have to take some chances. I have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I have to do some things that I've never done before. Right? If I'm going to make this road to recovery work for myself. And so I took the position, and little did I know that was part of my healing. When I was standing in front of young airmen, military airmen,
Helping them. Yeah.
telling my story,
Yeah.
mixed with a science-based, a science-based curriculum, public health focus. Man, it was healing for me. And then I really just found out that I had the gift of gab. I really had it in me to,
Yeah.
I had people.
You didn't know that before?
No, I was deadly afraid to talk in front of people.
Really? Wow.
My whole career. And then all of a sudden I'm pushed into it because of my job. It's my job now to talk in front of people. But I had so many people come up to me and say, holy cow, that was the best training that I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And thank you. And, we're glad that you're here. And I just had all these words of affirmations. And then one day I was having lunch with my boss, and my boss said, Chaz, have you ever thought about monetizing what you do? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I feel like we as the enterprise, that's what we call the military, is the enterprise, right? They said, we as the enterprise, we're holding you back. You have so much more to give, and we just can't pay you what you're worth.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And I was like, I never thought about it. And he said to me, I'll never forget it. He said, Chaz, if there's anything I can do as the commander of this installation, if there's anything that I can ever do to help you, then you just let me know. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So, a couple months went by and everything. And all of a sudden, I was asked to facilitate a John Maxwell leadership course, right? And so I did that. And I was like, wow, I really love this stuff. And so I went to my boss and said, hey, boss, man, you think you could send me to this certification course through John Maxwell? And he's like, absolutely. The military's been using John Maxwell as long as I can remember. So I went down, I did this course, it's online, right? And then I went down to Orlando to get my certification at the annual International Maxwell Conference. And let me tell you, holy cow, that changed my life. they gave me everything I needed to start my business.
Yeah.
They gave me the framework. They
Yeah.
literally, and one of the things that I'll never forget that I heard John Maxwell said is, John Maxwell said his purpose is to add value to me.
Yeah.
Like literally to me. Like I felt like he was talking directly to me saying,
That's
I'm
awesome.
here. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of how I feel. I want to add value to people. And frame shaping was born.
So do you think when that moment where things changed, did you recognize it at the time, or is that something that now you look back at it and be like, that's when it happened for me?
I did not recognize it at the time, but I was doing all. So it's real funny when we talk about, leadership. The question I ask people that go to all these leadership conferences, the people that study leadership is, are you implementing that in your life? Are you implementing those same principles in your personal life?
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking one day when I was really trying to come up with, hey, what's my slogan? What's my catchphrase? What do I tell people why they should come see me? And I was thinking, and I was like, you can never be an effective leader in any organization. And notice I said the word effective because there is level 1 leaders. That means that you're just a leader by virtue of position. But you can never be an effective leader in any organization if you can't be an effective leader in your own life.
Yeah.
Right. And so what does that mean? That means applying those same leadership principles in your everyday life.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what happened when I started introducing those same principles: intentionality, right? Getting comfortable being uncomfortable, habits, good habits, right? I grew up without knowing my biological father, right? After my darkest day, and I started this rebound, man, I just opened up and I started researching and I started asking questions, and I found my biological father's family. Unfortunately, he had already passed on. But man, I found out that I had a brother who was 20 years younger than me.
No kidding.
Right? I had sisters, and it's real ironic because all of these people that I found, they had been very close to me my whole life. Military wise as well. I was stationed out in California, and little did I know I had 2 sisters that was just down south of me in California. I was living in Texas, not knowing that, not only did I not know, but my mom didn't know her best friend was from high school was actually living 20 minutes up the road, which was my aunt and my cousins, just the relationship that I've been able to build with my youngest brother since then. Like, these are all things that I would have never done had I not started to incorporate all these tools of leadership into my own personal life.
Yeah. But changed so much for you.
Oh man, changed everything.
Yeah, you were talking a little bit earlier about just, feeling, the way that people feel about you and the way you feel about yourself. And I heard something recently where nobody in this world will ever love us perfectly. Okay.
Absolutely.
It is our job and it's God's job to love us perfectly. And that really stuck with me when I heard that, because, you think about, like, even the people that you're closest to in this world, man, they can't give you 100% of all you need as a person. It's got to come from you, and I think a lot of what you're saying is you're working on yourself and you're building yourself and you're framing your life so that it is what you want it to be,
And let me
that's
tell you,
intentionality.
Absolutely. And as you're doing that, the one thing that you're not focusing on when you're focusing on yourself and growing yourself, you're not focusing on all these external factors, and intrinsically all these external factors start getting better.
Yeah.
The circles that you're with start getting better. The people that reach out to you start getting better, right?
Yeah.
It's like you just grow in life when you start being intentional in your own personal growth.
Do you think that it is healthy on a level to not care about what anybody else thinks about you and what you're doing?
Absolutely. I if I can never say anything that I want anyone to ever remember, and that is this: if you're not dreaming big, if people aren't laughing at your dreams, you're not dreaming big enough, right? So let them laugh.
I love that. When we get done, I'll walk you next door to my office. I literally have a mural of Muhammad Ali, and it says, "If your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough."
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
is 100%.
Absolutely. You know, I have dreams that people laugh at me because they say I'm too old to achieve them. Right? That's okay. Let them. Right? That doesn't stop my journey. That does, you know, and realistically, will I ever get to my dream? Hell, who knows? Only God knows that, right?
But life takes you so many directions that you don't even know that you're capable of. But if you start going down that path, man, like I would have never imagined that life's going to take me the places I did. And I'm sure the same's for you, man, with the things that you're doing. And, you know, it's like you didn't like to public speak before. And man, you're one of the best ones that I know now. Like I love listening to you talk because you got enthusiasm. You're excited about life and what you're doing. And if you hadn't gone through that journey, you wouldn't be what you are today, man.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
good and the bad, man. Like
Absolutely.
me and Mike Wynn talked a couple of weeks ago here on this podcast, and we talked about all of these negative things that happen in our life build us so that we are equipped to be the human beings that we are today. And if we hadn't gone through the bad things that God puts in our path, that we wouldn't be able to empathize with others and to be there and to be able to connect to them on that personal level. And that speaks exactly to what you do, man.
Yesterday, I had the fortunate opportunity yesterday to listen to a friend of mine speak, Judson Stone. And he said something that resonated with me so deeply that I don't think it's been a while. I've had some mentors that have said some things, but yesterday I listened to Judson and he said, write your goals, basically write your life in pencil and give God the eraser. Like that hit me so hard.
I love that.
Because you know what? I'm just enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
I'm just everything.
When you're not in control of all of it.
Absolutely. I'm just
But
enjoying.
when you see a good thing and an opportunity, man, you have to go for it and put the energy behind it, you know. And a lot of times that stuff turns out to be pretty great stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love it. So, well, very cool. So tell me, what does a typical transformation look like for somebody that's going through the frame shaping process? What does that look like?
So typically the clients that I see or customers, because I do also go into organizations and do a little bit of leadership training as well as team building. Because here's one thing that I will say about, you know, any type of challenge that we're faced with in life, you're not going to be able to get through that challenge alone. There's going to be some type of outside entity, whether it's God, whether it's coworkers, whether it's friends. It's going to take more than just your gut will to get you through some things because you don't know some things, right? T. Harv Eker wrote in a book, The Secret Mind of a Millionaire, if you're not successful at something, it's because you don't know something, right?
Yeah.
And so you're almost always going to rely. You didn't build this by yourself. You had to get some help. You had to get some knowledge from somewhere.
Tons of
right.
help.
And so when I typically see a client, they are coming to me because they are having the same issues that I've dealt with. They're at a point where they feel like they have no value left to the world. They feel like that they can't achieve anything. They feel just depleted. And I work with them. I partner with them. As a coach, I don't give advice. I partner with you and we get you comfortable being uncomfortable. We challenge each other to do things that we haven't done, to find our purpose. Yeah. It's easy, you know, you hear that all the time, find your purpose and life will be, it's hard to find your purpose. You 9 times out of 10, the first thing that you venture out on is not going to get you to your purpose, right? Was this your first business? Absolutely.
Definitely not.
It definitely wasn't mine, right? You know, but I partner with them just to try new things. Like, there's some curriculum to it, right? There's, you know, we get you used to writing down how certain things make you feel, right? So that we can find out where we can really pinpoint where your true purpose is. And then we encourage you to take that leap of faith. That sometimes that means a career change. Sometimes that means moving, right? I had a client that I was working with out in California that absolutely loved her job, but she just wanted more. And I was like, have you thought about moving. And she's like, well, no. I was like, what would that look like if you did move? Man, she reached out to me finally after about 6 months. She reached out to me and now she's in Dallas and loving life.
Awesome.
And now she's getting ready to transition. So now she's literally just bouncing, right?
Yeah.
But all because we partnered together. And then the biggest thing is having a champion.
Yeah.
Right? Having that cheerleader with you. And that's my job. As a coach, my job is to cheer you on.
Yeah. So that person that gets stuck, right? How do you help them to get unstuck? And is that by pushing those boundaries? Is that
It is. It is absolutely pushing the boundaries. I try very hard. I am very intentional. I try very hard to push you to the point where you're ready to quit. Because if I can get you to the point where you're ready to quit, that is 9 times out of 10 what's stopping you from getting to where you want to be. So if I can get you to that point, and then that's when I get beside you and say, come on, let's go. We got this. We're going to do this together. And we push through that pain point. Yeah. And once we get through that and you see, it's that aha moment. Oh, that wasn't so bad. Just like me standing up in front of a crowd of 20 for the first time, thinking to myself, I'm going to fail this. But here's something.
I've always felt that the more comfortable I am with being uncomfortable, it becomes less over time. And it's not that I'm fearless. It's just that I don't care about failing, because if I do fail, that's okay. And I'm going to learn something from it.
Listen, failure is the name of the game.
Yeah.
So one of my mentors, a really good friend, and I'm sure you know or have at least heard of him, Willie Spears.
Mm-hmm. I love Willie.
Willie, one day I was at lunch with Willie and I was like, man, Willie, I'm stuck. What's going on? He said, Chaz, you want to know something? You know why I'm more successful than you? I was like, why is it? He said, because I failed more than you. Man, did that moment propelled my business, because that's when I stopped being afraid of people telling me no.
Yeah.
Did you know that
Willie's a successful guy, and if he says that, you better believe it.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely. And and so I took that to heart and I challenged him. I was like, I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna fail more than you, right? So I started taking these chances. And no is another pinch point for most people, right?
Yeah.
For some reason, we hate to be told no. Interesting fact, I had to look this up, scientific fact. And the average person, by the time they turn 18, will have heard no about 150,000 times. You know how many times they'll be told yes? Maybe 1,000.
Yeah.
Like,
sounds about right.
Think about that. We dread the word no, but we're told no probably more than any other word in the English language.
Yeah.
Right? So why is it such a pinch point, right? Somebody says no, we take it personal.
It's fear of failure.
Yeah, fear of failure. Fail more, fail often.
I would say that that's probably the most common topic that comes up on this podcast is just business failure, and all to a T. Every single entrepreneur that's come on here has said that, they can't be afraid to fail. You can't, in all of the biblical and religious texts that's ever been seen in this world, the most common phrase amongst any of them is fear not. Okay. And there's a reason for that.
Absolutely.
Because God doesn't want us to be afraid of, getting out there and living and being in the world. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so deep. That was, I remember I had a boss, when I was going through my trying times, that literally told me, he's like, Chaz, you got to remember something. And he's like, you're not in control. He said, always remember this: faith, family, and everything else. Right? Put your faith first. Your faith in whatever, right? My faith happens to be in God, right? Whatever your faith is, put your faith in that.
Yeah.
Your family, because after all is said and done, no one's going to be with you longer than your family.
Yeah.
And then everything else. Right?
Well, and that's at the core of you. It's, at the end of the day, when we leave work and we go home, that's our safe space. And that's where we get to re-energize and, build us back up to go out and do the things that we need to do. And, that to me is where your safe space should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I got a question for you. So what is something that other people value that you don't?
Money.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, right, there's always the goal, right? You go into business because you want to make money, right? But for me, when I stopped focusing on the money and start focusing on really helping people, that's when the money came.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't value money like and I think a lot of people, I think
that's the goal.
yeah, that is their goal, and I don't think that's I know that's not my goal. My goal is really, my number one goal is to encourage or influence society that suicide is preventable. Like, it's all about building those connections. Look, we don't have to like each other, right? We don't have to like each other to help each other, right? I do believe in the core of leadership, in the core of life, in the core of just about anything that we do is one word: love, right? I cannot like you and still love you, right? I think we have to love people to lead people. We have to love people to save people, right? And so if I could just encourage people to understand that, we don't have to get along and we don't have to agree on everything, but if we can just care about life, we can eradicate suicide. We can get rid of suicide without a vaccine. We can get rid of suicide without awareness months. We really can. And it's all about just building that connection and creating a safe space.
And love is an action, man. It's the way we treat each other that way. And I will promise you that I've dealt with so many different employees and friends and that sort of thing over the course of time. And as an employer, I get to hear about everything going on in everybody's life, right? And it may not be anything they share with anybody else, but a lot of times they'll talk to me about it. And I promise you to a T, there is not an employee I've ever had that didn't have something of significance going on in their life, where sometimes they get down about it, man. And I bet you, Chas, it's 100% of people that have thought about the things that you went through and dealt with that mental hurdle of things that way, and thinking about their life and, being depressed and, being suicidal in a lot of cases. And it's something that I think if we had a little bit of human compassion with each other and understood that we're all going through tough stuff, and to give each other grace and kindness and love in the ways that we can do it, this would be a whole different world, man.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to frame shaping, right? Reframing that thought process, right? If I know that you're going through something and you're struggling with it, instead of me saying, "Oh, you'll get over that. Look at me, I'm not going through that." Well, teach me how you're dealing with that. Instead of saying, "Oh, I don't have that problem. You shouldn't have it either." Understand that we're all human and we all respond differently. Yeah. Like, let's stop saying that your problem is not a problem because I don't have it, right? And start saying, "Hey, you have that problem. I don't have it. Here's how I deal with it. Give it a shot. And if that doesn't work, let's figure this thing out together." Right? It's really simple. Have you ever heard? Let me ask you a question on about suicide. Have you ever heard of anyone who died by suicide? Have you ever heard anybody left behind say how much of a dirtbag they were, or that they hated that person, or that person was useless anyway? Absolutely not. No. So how do we tap into those same responses before we lose people?
And I think that's where the concept of valuing what people think about themselves and, versus what other people think. I asked about that a little bit ago because, there's a part of me that I just don't care what anybody thinks of me sometimes, and like I want to be liked and I want to be friends with people and stuff like that. But if somebody doesn't like me, it's okay, Like I care about doing good things in the world and making things happen in my life that are value to me. And I've had to learn that. Yeah. I think I put too much weight on what other people thought of me in the past. And I'm at this point in my life, I'm 49. I just, I'm going to be me, and that's good enough.
I'm going to tell you, it's funny how our relationship actually became, right? We're both Rotarians. Let me tell you how I felt about Rotary when I was first approached with the idea. I'm going to tell you, growing up, the only thing I knew about Rotary was old, rich, white men. And so I was like, it's not the place for me, right? Yeah. But let me tell you, once I got comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I went into Rotary, and I have met the best group of business associates, friends, just by stepping out of my comfort zone, doing something that was not normal for me. So absolutely. And it takes, it wasn't easy. I had to have encouragement to do that. It wasn't just, I just showed up one day, but I had to be encouraged to go there, and so if more people would encourage others to do these things, right? Let them know that, hey, it's not that bad, man. Give it a shot, know.
Well, and to be able to have, folks in there that are fresh voices and stuff like that too. I mean, bringing in young folks that have different perspectives on things. And, generally speaking, that group is some of the most philanthropic people that are out there. And, it's a bunch of people that want to do good things. And
Absolutely.
so I'm glad you're part of it, man.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yep. Awesome. So on the business side of things, what is the best advice that you've ever heard or received?
The best advice that I was ever given was by a business partner of mine who ironically used to work for me when we were both in the military. And he told me a couple years ago, I was asking him about mentors. Mm-hmm. Like I was looking for a mentor and I was rattling off all these names and he was like, man, why are you trying to find a mentor who's not doing what you're doing? Right? You think about, we always say, we talk about, as in leadership, right? You can almost never go into a leadership forum without somebody bringing up the name Lee Iacocca, and they read everything he's ever written. And he's my mentor. It's like, okay, is that where you want to be?
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to be, a mentor to someone about podcasting, right? Or are you looking for a podcasting mentor?
Yeah.
Right.
Get somebody who's been there. Yeah.
Right. Why would you go see, why would you go see an insurance man who's a successful insurance man? Why would you seek them out to be your mentor?
Well, it's the old adage of surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be like, right?
Absolutely.
And those people elevate you and you become like your friends are, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if that's who you got around you, then you're heading the right direction.
Absolutely. So I think that was probably, in business, probably the best advice that I got was seek out a mentor who's doing or is going where you want to be, or is at where you want to be, right? So I wanted to be a successful leadership coach, right? So that's why I really did grow myself in the John Maxwell space, because let's just face it, John Maxwell is the greatest leadership coach that this world has ever seen. He's internationally known, and then, there's a lot of proteges from John Maxwell that are successful, and so I look to people like that. I'm a talker. I'm a speaker, right? That's why Willie Spears is one of my mentors.
One of the best.
Absolutely, right? Anything I watch every single clip that he puts out, and he probably don't even know that. So if he sees this, he's not going to know. But I probably watch it because I R&D it. Yeah, I R&D. You know what R&D means, right? Rip off and duplicate. Yep.
Well, and we were talking before the podcast, and I was telling Everett, hey, there's these things that I saw that I want to emulate with this podcast. I mean, that's what you do. You look and see what's successful out there and what you like and what works for you. And then you can emulate some of those elements in your life. And the same thing with any kind of leadership, mentorship. You're looking at that person and what skills that person brings and how you want to emulate it in your life and in your business model and yourself, right? And that leads me to a good question I want to ask you is, what do you think is one of the most underrated traits in entrepreneurships that no one talks about?
Honestly speaking, I'm going to say speaking, communicating. I think that is probably one of the most underrated. You ever heard the term, I could sell water to a fish? I think being able to effectively communicate is I think it's really, truly we talk about it a lot, but I think it's really underrated, the value and the power in speaking. Yeah. Right? Speaking with authority, right? Letting people know that, hey, look, I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Right. And just being yourself. Yeah. Being yourself. They kind of go neck and neck. I think in businesses, don't try to be something that you're not.
Yeah.
Right. If you're, I like to say, we have a lot of things in our brain bank, right? Use that. Use what's in your brain bank. Sometimes it takes a coach to help you find it,
Yeah.
help you make that withdrawal out of your brain bank. But be yourself in whatever it is that you're doing. Don't try to be something that you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. A big reason for us starting this podcast was because people like yourselves and the guests that we've had in the past, I feel like there's so much of this stuff that's inside of them that we need to get out and share with the world.
Absolutely.
And by communicating and being able to have these conversations, now we can share that knowledge that folks like you have that, somebody else can take it and ingrain it in their life. And so that's a big reason for what we do today.
Absolutely. I tell people this all the time. I am not trying to duplicate a bunch of Chaz's. But I'm, and this is not to be stuck up or high on myself. It's like, I'm trying to multiply Chaz's. I don't want you to be like me, but I want you to think like me. Right?
I mean, putting that framework in place for them.
Absolutely.
And from there, they make their own realities and their own goals and where they go with it. But the framework you're putting together, and then they're off and running.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And that statement it almost sounds like it's a really arrogant statement, but ultimately what I really mean by that is decide today that today is going to be your last worst day. Remember we were having that conversation.
You said you haven't had a bad day in 10 years?
I haven't had a bad day since November 15th or November 17th, 2015. Yeah. That was the last bad day that I had. And that's the day that I tried to take my life.
Yeah. Well, I'm super glad to hear that you're choosing to have good days every day.
Absolutely. Every day is a good day on this side of the dirt.
So let me ask you this question. This is a little different one. If your life was a movie, what would the audience be screaming at you to do?
Oh, that's a good question. If they were screaming at me, telling me what to do, they'd probably be screaming, "Shut up," because I'd be talking so much. But no,
I doubt that.
Really, I honestly feel like they would be screaming, more.
Yeah.
They'd be screaming, "We want more."
Yeah. Like, go for it, man.
Yeah. We want more. You got this. You can do it. I do. I feel like, it'd be a rally call, right? I think.
Well, you talked about, going for it and really, emulating some of those things that some of those mentors have been to you. And I love the path that you're on, and I know you're going to conferences and learning from people and doing that. And, I guess just putting the foot on the accelerator and going for it,
Yeah.
So.
And do as much as you can.
Yeah.
Like people ask me all the time, how am I able to do, I wake up, I'm at the gym at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I have a day job. I work for the federal government by day, and I have my business in the evening, and I'm still traveling to different places for my business. How do you do all this? How do you do all this? And I'm gonna say intentionality.
Yeah.
It is being intentional and knowing my purpose, letting my purpose aligned with my values drive my vision and my mission, and I just go.
Yeah, for sure. What's something in your life that you can't live without?
I'm an avid video gamer. I have.
What's your game of choice?
So right now, I'm practicing I'm back on GTA 5 right now, nice. Only because GTA 6 is coming out. Yeah. And so I have to get back used to, I know it's going to be completely different, but yeah, so that's what I'm really focusing on. It's weird, and I'm going to say this, with everything that I have going on, I still play my video games, but I'm actually very intentional about that too.
Is it your place to unplug, so to speak? I mean, you're plugged in, but is where you just
it is
push the stuff aside. And
it is absolutely that. When we talk about effective habits, right? One thing that I'm very, very effective with, I think, is my calendar. 1 January, unlike anybody else that I know, I block out my lunch for the whole year.
Oh, that's awesome.
right? I block it out. So nobody can look at they can look at, no matter which calendar I'm using, you can look at it and you're like, there's nothing scheduled for the whole year for lunch. Why? Because eating is very important to me,
Yeah.
right? But it also allows me a little bit of flexibility to be able to, like, if I want to,
That's your time.
yeah, you know, if I say, hey, Aaron,
Grand Theft Audio 5 during lunch.
hey, Aaron, I got some thoughts that I want to run by you. Let's have lunch,
Yeah.
right? I have that in I don't have to be searching for it because I got lunch open, you know.
No, I love that because I feel like as an entrepreneur, I just get hosed on lunch so often, man. And, you know, I bet you at least half the time I'm skipping lunch during the course of a day because something comes up and somebody needs a meet or something, or I'm just too busy and I don't eat and I don't take care of myself that way.
Yeah.
I love that you do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's paramount being intentional. But what I was getting at was Sunday is my day.
Mm-hmm.
So Sunday I go to church, whether it's football season, Formula One season, or game. Like that is my day. My family knows that. They're not going to bother me. We're not going to plan anything. That's my day. Saturday is my wife's day. Like, hey, I won't make plans with anybody else unless my wife is either working or, you know, doesn't want to do anything, you know, but that day is, if my wife says that, hey, this Saturday, I want to do this, then guess what I'm doing? That's how I give her that time.
Yeah.
You know, and then throughout the week, I have certain people that I give time to, you know, and I'm very disciplined. When that time is up, hey, it's been real. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. No, I love how intentional you are about your schedule and your life and how you do that. I think we could all learn a lot from that approach and incorporating that into our daily lives. So.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So I got one last question for you before
right.
we wrap up today. You know, in 10 years, what do you hope that your legacy is, not just in business, but how the people that you've touched on, how they live because of your work?
So honestly, in 10 years, I would hope that some of the organizations and individuals that I've worked with have started to partner with me on getting after homelessness, child homelessness. That is something that's really near and dear to my house. At any given time here in our own county, right, there's about 800 kids that are living in the woods.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I have this dream, right? My dream's very big and people are laughing at it, but I have this dream of building a complex here in Bay County to where we can house all these kids, but it's not just housing, right? It is, you know, if you think about all the great projects we have in town, like the Anchorage House and things like that, I want something grander than that. I want something to where it's like a one-stop shop. Like, these kids are living out in the woods. I want to help them rekindle their relationships with their family, whatever family. I want to help them find that family, whether, you know, wherever it may be, you know. So I want this center, if you would, to be able, and in 10 years, I would hope that I have built a community that is willing to help with that, because, you know, that's a little much for one person's dream. But the idea is to have this facility built where life skills are being taught, and, you know, we're just housing them and they're not living in the woods. You know, that just breaks my heart to know that so many kids.
It's terrible to see that in our community, but you know, one person can be the spark.
Absolutely.
It takes more than one person to get that fire going, but one person can be the spark.
You know, I think we're sitting at, last time I read, I think we're sitting in Bay County alone, as far as population wise, we're sitting close to about 200,000. Of those 200,000, I think there's about 137-ish thousand that are actually working, right? And, you know, that's 100. If I could get if I could get somebody on board to build this thing out, I mean, that's literally, as a community, we're asking the community, every working member in our community, to give up $2 a month.
Yeah.
And we could have this thing going.
Yeah.
You know, and we can make sure that the next future generations, you know, we will set them up for success by giving them a place to learn, a place to grow, and in turn, you know, turn around and just be good members of society. Because, you know, what do you think is going to happen to all of them that are out there in the woods?
they're starting that race way behind, man. And it's hard for kids when, when you're running the race of life and somebody's starting, 50 yards ahead of you, like that's hard for kids to overcome that. And so I think it's a beautiful goal, man. Yeah. So I'd love to see that happen.
Absolutely. So I'll be looking for you to give me that $2 a month.
Got your $2, man. So you got your first investor.
Well, like I said, the idea is ultimately I would love to be able to just go out and have this built, and then have the community, chip in just for its upkeep and continuation.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I love it. Well, Chas, I love what you do, and I love that you've been able to take something that was a difficult thing in your life and to change that to where you're now positively affecting other people, man. I'm so grateful to have you here in our community doing those kind of things and to touching on people that we care about and loving on them, man. The world's a better place because of folks like you, man. So thank you for that.
I appreciate you, brother.
So thanks. Well, I appreciate you being here on the podcast with us today. That wraps up our episode of The Road to Rich. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please join us next time for more fantastic discussions with folks like Chas.